Can I have everybody's attention? We're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'm real big on punctuality. I like to get started on time and we'll get out on time. Hey, welcome to the September meeting of the Sandusky River Valley Beekeepers. We got a good crowd tonight. Hey, I just want to remind you, we have coffee and water and cookies and chips. So if you want anything, we also have water over here and a cooler. So if anybody wants anything to drink or if you need a snack or something, just come on up anytime you want. Hey, we're going to start. I'm going to ask Kim to review the August meeting minutes. So do we have a microphone? Yep, right here. Either one of those over.
We're kind of changing gears here a little bit instead of sending them through the email. President Gary Wiley. Touch the screen. President Gary Wiley called the meeting to order for the September monthly meeting of the Sandusky River Valley Beekeepers Association at noon on Sunday, September 10th, 2023 in Fremont, Ohio at Dr. Michael Stoner's home. Roll call. There was not a sign in because of the picnic, so there was just a head count of 38 members in attendance. As far as announcements, the president welcomed everyone to the picnic and thanked Dr. Stone for hosting the event. The workshop, there will be a workshop held September 23rd at the Wiley's Barn from 10 a.m. to noon. Wintering of hives will be the topic, including sugar board and patty making. The October monthly meeting will be on winterizing your hives, and the presenter will be Linda Miller. During the October meeting, the bear bottles will be passed out and collected in November for the food pantries. A huge thank you went to Linda Miller for many years of updating the SRVBA website on the OSBA website. At this time, Jamie Garza will now be taking over this job. There was a reminder about the upcoming OSBA conference coming at the end of October. Also, Sue Rose shared a list of beekeeping items that she is selling. I don't know what's been updated or sold since the newsletter, but you can find that within the newsletter. Doug Ritchie also spoke about the upcoming nominations. He encouraged club members to run for an office or nominate someone for an office. And then Gary gave prayer before the start of the meal. There was no secretary's report, no treasurer's report, unfinished or new business. And there was a 50-50 raffle held during the picnic, and Amy Gruenberger won the prize. Their next month's meeting will be Monday, October 2nd at 7 p.m. at the First United Methodist Church in Clyde. There was no adjournment to the meeting due to the picnic.
Thank you. And Tammy, you want to go ahead and do the treasurer report?
You have to vote on the minutes.
Oh, thank you. Hey, do we have any additions or any corrections that need to be made to the minutes?
Move to be accepted.
Move to be accepted. All in favor of the minutes to be accepted as they are, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, they're approved. Tammy, can you give us the treasurer report?
Yes, as of today, we have $5,321.82. I still do have to do one more deposit from the 50-50 bracket. So that'll be done this week.
Just to interrupt, has everybody signed in for tonight? Hold your hand up, Sue can come around and get you in, signed in.
Okay, I'm going to go over some things before we get started with the presentation. But as Kim mentioned, the OSBA Fall Conference is coming up October 27th and 28th. Hey, in looking over the learning tracks with this, it looks like if you've been a beekeeper, let's say you've only been keeping bees for like I don't know, anywhere from a beginner out to, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And they got some pretty good tracks for beekeepers, especially newer beekeepers or people that want to reinforce a lot of the stuff that they've learned. I would classify this conference as a lot of it is back to basics. Is kind of the way I looked at it. I've signed up for it. I think it's worthwhile. So, Chris, do we have any additions from OSBA?
Well, I tried to find out on my way here from Jamie to see how many people signed up so far. They had about 130 about a week and a half ago, which is pretty good. Being now a month away. However, if anybody wants to help, it's free. You need help on the dock, loading or moving the crap around the vendors. Putting signs up, signing in people, standing there, making sure coffee, the donuts on the paper bill. If you're a member, it's $55 and that's lunch included. If you're a non-member of OSBA, it's $65. But if you're a helper, it's free. And probably going to start at 7 on Saturday, usually 7 o'clock on Saturday, and probably done by 5, 6. You know, but there's various jobs. I'm going to be on the loading dock along with another director, and we're going to put placards up to what tables they go to, help them wheel their carts over there. We're going to come back and grab another cart and wheel it over here. So it's a great place to go. There's going to be supposedly about 25 vendors. And it's Gary said the speakers. I was on the speaking committee, and I'm kind of dead because I'm going to put it, you know, for the first session, this guy, the second session, this guy, maybe I can go to the rooms and catch it a little bit, you know, but it didn't happen that way. But we have 3 tracks. It's going to be for like beginners, 1 to 5 years, then like 5 to 10, and then there's going to be scientific things. But that's about it. You know, if you haven't signed up, sign up in Worcester. And if you want to help, give me a call or Gary a call, and we can look on the sign up sheet. All right. Yeah, you won't be disappointed. I think it's going to be good.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. Hey, just a reminder, next month, we're going to be doing nominations for officers. So all the officer and director positions will be open for election. And so next month, you know, we would welcome anyone who would like to run for any of the positions. So also, I want to give a thank you to Jamie Scott. Jamie did a presentation to the 3rd graders. Was that Sandusky schools? Yep, did a presentation for Sandusky schools. Also this month, we had a group out at the barn that I want to mention. Tammy and Jamie Garza did. It was a large homeschooling group, and we had a lot of young kids. It was pretty neat. So did I miss anybody? Did anybody do any other presentations? Okay. You know, this time of the year, we start to see the 3rd graders. Oh, we had the 3rd graders from ICS in Bellevue show up at the barn one day. The Bellevue school bus pulled in, and we did the 3rd graders from there. And I'm sure we're going to get at least one more 3rd grade group before the month's out. Also tonight, after Linda's done presenting, we're going to be handing out the honey bears. We hand them out in bags of 10. So what we normally do as a club, if you have honey that you want to donate to a food pantry, your local food pantry, we have the bottles, through the small plastic bottles. And then what you do is fill them with your honey when you take them home, bring them back next month, and we'll label them. We usually decorate them up a little bit. And then some people even divvy them up a little bit to make sure we cover all the different food pantries in the area. I've received calls from one food pantry so far this year, and I suspect that there's a pretty good need out there. So if you have extra honey, keep that in mind as we're going into this. Make sure you mark, I guess it would be January 4th. That's the first Monday of January. We're gonna be having our Christmas party, which is our annual meeting. That's when we elect officers. And we have a great time. We have a- Oh, did I use the wrong month? You know, I'm going to Florida in January. Did I mention that? It's kind of clouding my judgment here. No, December the 4th, 6 p.m. It's gonna be at the Ballville Township Fire Building where we've had it the last 2 years. On that night, we'll also do elections. There'll be tons of stuff that we'll be raffling off, and it's really a good time. There's tons of food, and just everybody visits. It's pretty neat. Also, if you're here and you want to enroll in a new beekeeper class, we've got 2 classes coming up. There's one on February the 24th. And there's another one on March the 9th. So we're doing 2 classes this year. And so if you're in the club here, if you want to be in that enrollment, once I start sending emails out, I suspect these 2 classes will fill up. And so if you're here and you want to be in one of those classes, let me know, and I'll make sure you got a spot in the classes. Last year I felt bad because we turned away more than a dozen people, a dozen couples that I sent their enrollment back, and there was more that I had told on the phone that we didn't have room for. And so we had 53 people in that class, and I don't like to put more than 50 in the barn because it makes a pretty good sized class. So we're gonna do 2 classes this year.
And the dates on those?
Yeah, the dates again is February the 24th and then March the 9th. And we chose those 2 dates because the week in between is when Tri-County is having their workshop. Yep, over in Woodford. So before we get started, I just want to take just a minute and just remind you where we've been for this year. Because, we started this year out, February, we had a little business meeting here. And we said that as a club, this year we were going to work on mites. The year before, everybody said, hey, we really need to review all this mite stuff again. So we did that. We did some workshops. We also did pests and diseases. That was the other major area that we did as a club. We worked through both of those topics this year through several meetings. And then several people suggested that we talk about using nukes in the apiary. And we did that also. So thinking about how we do things here as a club, we like to do things, we like to plan and have goals and stuff. And so start thinking about what you would want to see next year. Because we can reach out there and there is, wherever we want to go for topics next year, we can find the people to present them as a club, but we need focus areas that we need to focus on. After what I saw with mites this year, I'd kind of like to pull some more mite stuff in. It seems like every year people feel like they just don't know enough about mites and mite treatment. So that's kind of out there on my radar. But other than that, if you think of something, please send me an email. Let me know what you think, if there's something you'd like to see for next year. And with that, I'm gonna turn this over to Linda Miller. So Linda has been a member of the club for, the club started back in 1998. Was you here then?
No, about 10 years.
About 10 years. Linda usually does our winterization sessions, and she's had really good results. And so we want to thank her for coming back to talk again about hive winterization.
I think it's on.
All right,
Yeah,
that'll work. Okay, everybody can hear me all right? I have a big mouth, so it shouldn't be a problem. Um. Winterization. These are not my hives, by the way. Thank God we've not had a winter like that. But, as Gary said, I've had pretty good luck with it, with what I do, and I'll explain to you what I do. It doesn't mean you have to follow everything. You can tweak it, you can change it, whatever works for you, but I'll just tell you what works for me. I've had, the last few years, I've had anywhere from 25 to 30 hives, and I usually only lose 2 or 3 of them. This last year I lost 3. So that's not bad. It works out pretty good.
That's great.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, now is the time, actually almost past time, to be thinking about your winter prep. You want to check for mites. Positively check for mites. If you have a hive full of mites, or even something that's a little over what it should be, by the middle of winter, you're going to have an explosion and you will not have bees in the spring. They will just suck the life out of those bees. And I know we pound and pound about mites, but it really is important. And I know for new beekeepers, it's scary. But if you figure out how to check for them and to treat them, you should be in good shape. I do that right about now. I'll probably give them one last treatment. And I usually come out of winter, I can't remember exactly, 20 plus hives that I had 0 mites in most of them. And the most I had was one of my hives had 2 mites. So that's what you want to see when you're coming into spring. The other thing, and it's kind of late, but you want to know if your queen is any good. The queens are going to start shutting down a little bit right now. So it's not like you're going to see frame after frame of eggs and brood, but you should check to make sure that you do have some, to make sure that your queen is healthy. And if not, it's too late right now to get another queen for them unless you order it. I don't even know if I raise my own, but I don't know if you could get it from California. Does anybody know?
I think you said.
You could probably order one. And you just don't want a weak queen for winter because she's got to start laying your winter bees. What I do, because I raise my own queens, and I have a lot of nukes because I do nuke sales in the spring. If I have a weak hive without a queen, I just use the newspaper and double them up with another hive. And it makes sense for me and it works. You want to have a sufficient number of bees. And when I say that, you want to pick the lid up and see bees everywhere. We went through our mating nukes today, and there were some that were kind of weak. And you can, if you have a weak queen, as I said, just combine them. All I do is put a piece of newspaper down, take my hive tool and kind of cut a little bit of a slit in it, stack another hive on top, and those bees will blend. That pheromone from the bottom will come up, and they seem to survive pretty well. You want to plan on how you're going to feed, and
You kill that weak queen.
yes, kill the weak queen off of their head, which is heartbreaking, but that's what you do. You want to figure out how you're going to winter feed, and I'll go through all that, and whether or not you want to wrap your hives. Some people do, some people don't. How many frames of honey do you have? How's their food storage? And a lot of these things I'll get into more. The other thing is whether or not you want to tie your hives down. Where mine are situated, I don't have a wind problem, but One time I did. But you wanna make sure that, like when your hives are sitting up on a stand and we get a big nor'easter or something coming through, it'll blow them right over. So a lot of times people will use just the straps and tie them down.
Hey Linda, also, if you're using windbreaks, 2 years ago, we lost 2 hives from a windbreak in a 60-mile-an-hour wind.
Yeah,
Ripped the windbreak out of the ground and it rolled and it knocked 2 of our hives over. And, the bees were killed.
yeah, you wanna anchor everything as best you can. Okay, I kind of went through this. You want 0 to low mites. By low mites, you shouldn't have more than 3 per 100 bees. And I know most of you already have heard this, how you do the mite wash and how to take care of that. You want adequate food. They need a lot of food through the winter, and you want good ventilation. And I'll get more into that. Okay, there it's, I kind of talked about this. Yeah, I covered all this already. You really want to have a good healthy queen going into winter.
You never have too many bees. Okay.
They usually thin themselves out. Yeah, I mean, if there's too many bees, the queen will just slow down on laying. You're always gonna want fresh nurse bees, but she'll slow down. Okay. After the fall flow, I noticed I still have some nectar and pollen coming in right now, but we're gonna go, I think, towards the end of the weekend, we're gonna get down into 40s at night. And the first frost, it's done. You're not gonna get anything else after that to speak of. But right now they are pulling in pollen and nectar. And I don't know if it's been mentioned before, but if you open your hive and it smells like your kid left their dirty sweat socks in there, that's just goldenrod. And it doesn't taste like that, but it stinks. You'll swear something died in there. And you want to treat for mites if you have to. You want to look for evidence of wax moth and hive beetles. We found some with a few hive beetles today. And I think you covered that in that. We're Gary, in your class, right? Your pest management?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Rotating. I have not had anything yet that I need to rotate. But the bees, as you know, will work up. And if all my bees are in that top box, I will rotate those hive bottoms. You want the bees on the bottom, the empty box on the top. And I say empty, you don't want it without any food in it. But you want to rotate those. And if need be, like in mine, I will go through and if, like I've had a couple weeks ago, I had hives with just so much honey in it, the bees had nowhere to go. I'll pull a few of those frames out and add them to the weaker hives. You can change those around to help build the bees up for winter. I think we talked, and did anybody not take the beginner class? We're good there. I know they talked about when you rotate, you don't want to split the brood. If you have a half moon of brood in the top and another in the bottom, you don't want to switch those so they're here and here instead of here and here. So you got to watch that when you rotate your boxes. I always go through and clean all the wee beasties and crud off the bottom of the board. Make sure it's nice and clean for winter. Because if the bees die, they're gonna fall down and it can get real, it's easy for everything to get plugged up and the bees can't get out for a cleansing flight in the winter. You wanna flip your inner cover. And you want the notch in your inner cover to be down. In the summer, it goes up, and I always have to look, because I never remember this, but in the winter, it goes down, and it just helps with the ventilation through the hive. And also, for a bee to escape, if you get like that first frame I had on there of the snow, it will give the bees a place to go in and out if they have to. Okay, now we're back on Varroa. They're even ugly to look at. I mean, they really are creepy, I can't imagine. So we've gone through that. Okay, feeding in winter. Most people, I think, have double deep boxes. You want, hopefully, you have 80 pounds of honey in that hive. It's gonna take at least that much to get them through winter. And depending on our weather, if it's super cold, they're gonna stay clustered and they won't eat as much. But like last winter, we had a lot of 40s. In fact, some of them were even 50-degree days. Those bees will break cluster and they're gonna go through food like crazy. I did a lot of feeding last year, but I think it was the year before, maybe we had a longer period of frigid weather. And they cluster up and don't really move. If your hives are light, now's the time you want to try feeding them syrup. And it's 2 parts sugar to 1 part water by weight, is what I do. Some people do it by cups. I try to do it by weight. And the one thing I would suggest is if you use Boardman feeders, the ones that you can see the jar and they slide into the opening, that will attract robbing and it'll attract yellow jackets like crazy. So in the fall, try your best to feed them inside the hive. Like mine have holes in the lids of my newts, so I can put the jar in and the yellow jackets can't get in there. And now they come out with your top feeders and all kinds of stuff, but you do want to feed them to help them bulk up as much as they can before winter hits. I move my honey frames. I'm sure you've all looked in your hive and you'll have your brood and then maybe an empty frame or 2 on each side and honey on the outside. Move those honey frames into each side of the brood. Don't put it in the middle of the brood, but get them up against the brood so it's easier for the bees to get to that food. I use, okay, I'll get into this more. Gary will have sugar boards, and you can also use patties. And for the patties, I get it from Data, the AP23. It's just a dry pollen substitute. And I'll talk a little bit more about that too. And you should have a shim on the top if you don't have a sugar board. Okay, sugar boards or cakes. That's old. So, oh, I can show them. This is what we call a sugar board. And you can see it's a shim. There's wire on the bottom. And I don't, do you use wax paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried tissue paper. That's a disaster. Don't ever do that. Wax paper, and you put a block in here. I think, did you what you do all that? Yeah. And this is just wet sugar, not wet, but damp sugar that you press in there. Put these on your hive, and I've already had them clean 10 pounds of sugar out by 1st February. And sometimes they barely touch it. It really depends on how much food that they have. I won't pass this around. It's kind of heavy, but anybody that needs to look at it, it's here.
Hey, Linda, also, I brought some extra sheets along with a sugar board recipe. club sheet that we use,
Okay.
and it's also got your patty recipe on there. too.
Okay. Yeah, I've used the sugar boards, but now what I use is something. I took a master beekeeping class from Montana. And the guy there called them Krabby Patties, which I feel like SpongeBob, but that's what they call them. And those recipes are on the website if you need them. The patties, excuse me. The patties are nothing more than the AP23 and sugar. It calls for Karo syrup. I usually have enough honey that I blend honey in rather than the Karo, but you can do either, and a little bit of water. And you want it, got a lot of guys, but you want it kind of like pie dough, where it's moist, but you don't want it like cake batter. You know, you don't want to have to pour it. I don't know how, what's a good. Yeah, silly thing. I don't know. You know, you don't want them super wet. And the other thing with those is you can embed them into the sugar boards because they will need protein through the winter. They need both carbs and protein. Okay, the winter patties. You have in that recipe, you don't want the winter patty to have more than 5% of the artificial pollen. What happens is they get the runt, they get nosema if they have in the winter, if they get too much protein, it can also make them unhealthy and your bees can die from that. So there's proportions in there, how many grams of this or that when you make them. Yep, they need more carbs because it's colder. And yeah, Tammy has the video on how to make the patties and everything. Is that still on the website?
Yeah, that's on YouTube, on the Cherry City, on it,
Okay.
search it, I can find it.
Yeah, be glad that it was Tammy because when I demonstrated it last year, it was a clown show. I didn't know how to use the mixer and there was a crack flying everywhere. And, so, but she has a good one. Winter patties. You have to excuse me. We got a new puppy and I did not get to review this like I wanted to. It's been interesting. Okay, the winter patties, once the weather turns warm, you want to make sure that you don't have a lot in there. Just put little pieces in. Check them. If they don't eat them, remove them because those will draw hive beetles really fast. Those hive beetles smell that protein and sugar. So usually by the end of March, if I'm using patties, I pull them out. I just maybe give them a chunk if I think they need it. I do not use sugar boards. I use strictly the patties, which, like I said, doesn't mean that's what you have to do. I do it because I'm retired. I can go out to my hives every week and check on them, see what's going on. And the truth is, I enjoy peeking in on them. But now, most people that are still working, that all takes time. Time that you don't have. You get home from work and it's almost dark. You're not going to go check your bees. So use the sugar boards. Either or, whatever you want to do is fine. Or if you just want to break from your bees in the winter, use the sugar board. Let's see. And I do in the spring, I do put dry pollen out for them. I've got some pollen feeders just to give that queen a boost till things start blooming. Okay. I think everybody pretty much knows that in the winter, the bees will cluster and they vibrate enough and they get the energy going to keep those clusters warm. In that process, a lot of moisture builds up. So you want your hives. I'm gonna use her phone here in a minute. You know, they're level. If this is the entrance, you want them tipped just a little bit. Just tip them forward. I usually put, like a 1-inch block, if they're level to begin with. I take whatever scraps in the garage and just to lift that back end up. So then when the moisture goes up and collects on that inner cover and outer cover, it's gonna run forward down the front of the hive and out. Or if you leave it level, moisture's one of the quickest killers of bees in the winter. It'll drip down on those bees and they just have no way to get rid of it, and they basically freeze to death. So you want to be very cautious of the moisture in there. And I know I didn't see them on these shims. Like I said, I use just a shim. You want to drill at least 2 holes in that sugar board or shim, and you want them pointed like up from the outside and go up. And what it is to keep, if it should rain, snow, whatever, that way that moisture from that doesn't drip, you know, go down in. Hopefully, unless it's really windy. They definitely need air circulation. There again, because of the moisture, you want that air circulating through there, and those holes let that moisture and everything escape and keeps the circulation going in that hive. Oh, also, I don't put mine in until after the yellow jackets are done with and the robbing's done with. But if you happen to do it, take a piece of hardware cloth or screen and put it over those holes that you've drilled in, and that'll keep the yellow jackets and everything from crawling in there, because they will find any place they can to try and rob out the hive. Float feeders are nice. You can fill them with, do you use wood chips? You do that?
We don't.
I know some people will use those float feeders and just put wood chips or something in there to help draw the moisture too. You can, I think it's on here. No, you can also put entrance reducers on. If you have a real big robbing problem, get an entrance reducer, and you can see there's different notches. I usually use this one because then your guard bees don't have the whole front to protect. All they have is that little spot there. And it's kind of fun to watch and go after a robber, but sad maybe. The other thing you're gonna start seeing is they're gonna be throwing the drones out. That's really pathetic. I feel sorry for the old guys. They, I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but they will just, they corner them and they just shove them out. Because they figure they're just in the lazy boy watching football all winter and we're not gonna take care of them. So they boot them out. I know, wow.
That's cruel.
I know, kind of demasculating her. But it's true. I mean, they do get rid of them because all they do is eat. They eat and they make. I know some guys think that'd be a perfect wife, but not good with the drones. So we were talking before how they will expel the moisture or create moisture. And one of the worst things, in my opinion, and everything I learned, was not so much the cold weather, but the wind. If you're just getting a full load of wind coming in, like, I mean, we all know what the nor'easters off the lake are like. They're cold, they're damp, and it's just frigid. You don't want that hitting your hives. It depends on where you've positioned them. Mine kind of get an east wind, But, cause I like the east sun in the summer, bless you. But, I use wraps for mine. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit. I use this stuff right here, it's called Epilay. Has everybody seen this stuff? I can pass it around if not. It's real thin, it's easy to work with, and it's actually roofing material. And are you gonna sell it this year?
Yeah, we have these at the store,
Okay,
and what's nice about them, we reuse them year after year.
I'm on. I think this will be year 4 for mine, and I'm still using the same pieces I used in year 1. Where when you use roofing fabric, or the roofing, like, I call it felt tar paper type stuff, it tends to tear up. And so I don't use it a lot, I did for a year. But you can use that. Gary said there's somebody selling these.
Yeah, you'll see these in the Bee Supply catalogs. They're like $125.
Yeah, and they come with this padding or insulation in them. They are nice because you can just slide them over your hive, where the stuff I use, I have to take my trusty staple gun out and staple it around. I lost my clicker. So there's that, some people put hay bales around. I don't particularly care for it because they draw mice. The other thing that I do is, you know, that foam board that when you're doing siding or whatever, just that blue board, I put that on top of my hive. And it's amazing how much heat you can save just by having is that me doing that?
I think it's.
Okay. I've got all different sizes. I have some that's that thick and some that's like that, but it's just the idea, it does hold that heat. And of course, there's always bricks on top of it.
My answer, you put the foam board on top of your cover, inside or out?
I put it on the outside, on the top outside, yeah. Winter wraps. Oh, yes, when I see the ventilation holes, you don't want any of these wraps to cover those ventilation holes. Like when I staple mine on, I drop them below the holes. And the other thing is when you want to move something around and you need to take it off, it's a pain in the neck when that shim's stapled to the rest of the hive. Just makes it easier. Covered it. Okay, there's a little bit on the wraps. The first year I was gonna wrap mine, I went out to Gordon when Gordon Lumber was still around and was gonna get the black felt. And they said, well, we've got this new stuff. And I bought a big roll of it that time for like $60, but I think now it's a lot more.
It is pretty expensive. We bought 2 big rolls, and you know we've got the pieces, the long pieces, and we sell those for $7 a piece.
Yeah,
But the rolls, you know, they used to be 60. They're up over $100.
yeah. But when you've got just a few hives, you don't want a roll that's this big, because I mean, I still have this much left, and I cover, like I said, between 25 and 30 hives every fall. Talked about got that covered. Okay, that you can see the different ways of wrapping. That first hive, I believe, is felt. The second hive is felt. That last picture is one of mine. And the reason I put that on there is you can see right here where I pull this way down, probably that far over the bottom of the hive, almost to the ground. And I just take a utility knife and just cut an opening. And it gives them a way to get in and out. But especially if you have, screen bottom boards, doing that it will still have circulation, but it keeps a lot of the cold air from going up into the bottom of the hive. Like I said, it's just kind of what's worked for me. And there's still snow, but you can see they were pretty active that day.
And then you can also see your styrofoam board.
Yeah, yeah. That, it seems to work well.
And that shim allows you to then put those patties on top
Yeah,
and
and that, you can see the yellow outer cover and see that kind of lavender. That's my shim. So I mean, they're not real big.
Mhm.
You don't have to have a giant, I'm sure most guys have scrap around. That's all you need to do. Okay, mouse guards. I made the mistake of not putting any on last year. I thought, oh, I'll be fine. No, you're not. Now you can buy. I'm all about doing this on a budget because everybody knows it's not a cheap hobby. I use these. It's nothing more than, what is it, half inch hardware cloth. And all you do, wear gloves, cut a piece and just bend it like that and pop it in the front. That way, if you need to get in or out or to clean the debris out of the bottom of the hive in January, you're not out there with your screwdriver taking off all these high dollar mouse guards. This just works very well. You don't want mice in them. I only had one, but they do make a mess. There's, like I said, there's all kinds of options for all of that stuff. You can also, supposedly, if you take a black light and shine it into that hive, it'll show you if there's mouse urine in it. Like, whatever, but you can do it.
Here's what I found.
Did I say, hey, Google or anything?
no, it's like,
Yeah, see there, you can see the first one is a fancier mouse guard. Okay, you
See right
really,
here. Let me know if I can help.
I don't know why she's coughing. Stop pushing it.
it's a woman.
That's why you just.
One kid know everything.
Keep pushing it back.
Okay, you wanna check your food stores pretty regular. On sugar boards, I don't know, towards when you're getting in more to February, I would check them, you think every 3-4 weeks? Depending on what you had the time before. Like I said, I haven't been using them. On the patties, I check them every 7 to 10 days to go in, and you just don't want them to starve. It's heartbreaking when you get clear to the end of February and you lift that lid and your bees have starved. And you'll find them, if that happens, you'll see they're face down into the cone, is dinner in a door.
Yeah, Linda, I'd like to look to see, is any of the hives eating any of the sugar? Those are the ones that I pay close attention to.
Yeah,
You know, some hives will never get that sugar,
no,
and then you'll find other hives, they've even got honey. And seems like they'll go after the sugar.
and then there's hives that have all kinds of honey. And they eat all of that, plus the whole sugar board. So it's like it's a crapshoot, you just gotta keep an eye on it. You wanna keep the dead bees out of the entrance. I showed you how I had the little notch in that cover. I use, a lot of times it's just that my hive tool's handy, I'll pull them out. Some people use a coat hanger or whatever it takes to reach in there and just make sure that entrance is clear. So when they need to take a cleansing flight, they can get out, because they do plug up. You're gonna don't be alarmed when you see dead bees, because that's normal. They're gonna die off through the winter. And a lot of times they just drop through when it's too cold for the undertakers to pull them out. So don't be too alarmed. Lift the lid, visual, okay, yeah, you want it to be at least 30. I try to go at least 40, but the books tell me 30, so. And the other thing, and I've had this happen, and it's a shocker when it does. You'll have a hive and you look in and you think, they're dead. They're dead. You take the lid off and you throw them to the side thinking, okay, I gotta clean this out, and all of a sudden you look over and they're all going. You're like, what the hell is going on? And they're alive. What they do is they go into something called torpor. And it's basically, they do that. I don't want to call it a hibernation. Is there a word for it, Doc? I don't know. It's like they just become docile, they don't move, and they don't shiver much. And it's basically just to save their energy. And it's just weird. I had a whole hive like that. I thought the queen was dead and everything, and next thing I knew, she was flying around the top of the hive. It's just kind of fun to see. But it's, don't just, if it's a cold day, don't just assume they die. Wait until the weather warms up enough and then recheck them. That's it. Does anybody have questions? Is there something I didn't cover? Yes.
When your bees, when you thought you killed them and you didn't, were they clustered or were they on the bottom, or where were they?
No, they were clustered.
Okay.
They were all clustered, yeah. It is fun.
Then you gotta put.
Yeah. After the last frost. Yeah, I usually figure right around Thanksgiving. It's really past maybe the last frost, but around Thanksgiving, because in the beginning they have food. So. Yeah, do you have a question?
So. Put a sugar board on, we hold in February and it's falling, you're like, oh my god, you got your board in there. At that point, are they pretty docile, or are we still shooting up, what they're branded in?
I suit up.
Are they gonna be coming lively out there?
Yeah, they're gonna come oiling. I would definitely suit up, use a smoker, just light smoke. What I have done already is, I didn't really cover this. I don't know if you did the camp method. Have you guys heard of the camp method for sugar? Like if my sugar board was empty, end of February, I'm not gonna make another big sugar board. I just take about a quarter of a sheet of newspaper, lay it right on top of the frames, and dump sugar right out of the bag. And that will get them through.
I've been listening to Jim too. Okay, and Jim's gonna be at the fall thing too. But he was talking about taking the entrance, you know how it's got a little space on top, it's got the notch. The bees will die, fall through and pile up. So he's been talking with a lot of people that they're flipping it. So that the little notch is now a view up.
That makes sense.
And how are you doing it? The same way that everybody else has been doing it?
No, I'll be honest with you, I use them when it's throbbing.
Right.
But I don't put them on in the winter, only because of the way I pull that epaulet down over my hive. But could everybody hear Chris? This is really a good idea. On your entrance reducer where this notch is, if you leave them on for the winter and the dead bees pile up, it'll block this. And he said, turn it up. They're still gonna go in and out, but your bees will pile up underneath it. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm gonna start doing that, because
Yeah.
the way I insulate my whole area in the front, my landing ports, you know.
Okay. Something I will tell you guys, I know a lot of people wanna put foam board on the outside of the hive. Just an issue I ran into, I did that my first year thinking I was just gonna be awesome and keep them alive. Well, they stayed alive, but the ants made the biggest nest between the outside of the hive body and that foam board that I had one heck of a mess. I mean, there was eggs and ants and crap everywhere. So if you do that, keep an airspace in there, is what I would suggest. Mine were right up against it. Like I said, I was gonna be awesome. I knew everything by my second year. So. Okay,
We got time for them. There's a word
Oh, I'm
problem-
sorry.
There's a word problem on the screen, not.
you mean to put that,
Put these in my way.
I think most people do. I don't use them. You guys had them.
We use both, but last year we switched mostly to solid bottom boards. But, I've had success both ways. I've been tracking though, how many losses I have. And, I'll put some data out another year or so. Cause I am kind of curious, to make a difference if you have a solid bottom board or a screen.
I don't,
I don't think it does, but I'm gonna collect some data and see. I don't know.
I had a bunch of them and I switched back mostly because I would get bees on the underside that would propolize those political signs that go in there, and it'd be a mess and I'd be cussing and go home in a bad mood. I didn't care for them. And sometimes I look at the old timers and I think, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. That's just, these old timers, you ever get a chance to read like C.C. Miller's book and stuff, there's some really neat things. I know Evelyn taught me one about ants. You just put something green on top of the inner cover, and I've not had ants since.
Just something green.
Well, leaves, yeah. Yeah, just little things like that. During the long cold winter, it's fun to read them.
All right, well, Linda, thank you.
Oh. Here, I don't want to go home with it.